"I don't have a daddy, will you play with me?" said the little beggar to the businessman. Richard Thompson felt the weight of another exhausting workday as he decided to cut through Central Park in Portland to reach the parking lot faster. At 42, he had built a business empire that filled him with pride, but had also left him completely isolated from the world around him. That's when he felt a gentle tug on his sleeve. Looking down, he saw a girl about 7 years old, wearing a worn-out wool hat and clutching a tattered cloth doll. "Mister, I don't have a daddy. Will you play with me?" she said in a sweet voice that made Richard stop in his tracks. The businessman froze. There was something in those brown eyes that touched him in a way he couldn't explain. Tears welled up before he could stop them. "What's your name?" Richard asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Emily," the girl replied, swaying the doll. "This is Daisy, my only friend. She doesn't have a daddy either." Richard knelt on the sidewalk, not caring if his expensive suit got dirty. For the first time in years, something stirred deep in his heart, hardened by years of business. "And where's your mommy, Emily?" "Grandma said she left when I was a baby, but I think she just got lost and can't find me," the girl explained with heartbreaking simplicity. Richard looked around and noticed people hurrying past, completely ignoring the child who clearly needed help. He had done the same every day, always focused on his meetings and important commitments. "Where do you live, Emily?" "Over there," she pointed vaguely. "With Grandma Margaret. She's always tired, so I come here to find someone to play with." Richard's chest tightened. This little girl spent her days alone, seeking company from strangers while her grandmother was likely working or resting. "What kind of games do you like?" Emily's eyes lit up in a way Richard had never seen before. "House! Daisy can be our daughter," she said, lifting the doll. "Or school. I can teach you to read. I already know some letters." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now back to the story. Richard glanced at the expensive watch on his wrist. He had an important meeting in 15 minutes, a deal worth millions. But something in that moment made him choose a decision that would change his life forever. "All right, Emily, let's play for a little while." The girl's joy was so genuine that Richard felt tears roll down his face again. When was the last time someone had been so happy just to be with him? Emily sat on the ground in the park and began setting up an elaborate game with her doll. Richard, awkwardly, tried to follow her instructions. "Now you have to talk to Daisy like she's real," Emily explained patiently. "Ask if she wants dinner. Daisy, are you hungry?" Richard felt ridiculous, but the happiness on the girl's face was worth any embarrassment. She said yes. Emily put on a different voice for the doll. "Thank you, Daddy Richard." The word daddy struck Richard like lightning. He had never been a father, had never even seriously considered it. His life had always been solely about work and financial success. "Emily, do you come here every day?" "Uh-huh. Ever since Grandma got sick and couldn't take me to the playground anymore. But it's nice here too. There are lots of people to meet." Richard felt a mix of admiration and worry. This child had such a positive view of the world, even in her difficult situation. "And do people usually play with you?" Emily lowered her head, fidgeting with the doll's clothes. "Not always. Most are always in a hurry, just like you were. But you stopped. That's why I like you." Richard's heart tightened even more. He was exactly like all those hurried people, always chasing money and contracts, completely ignoring what truly mattered. "Emily, where exactly do you live? I'll take you home." "Grandma doesn't like it when I bring strangers. She says it can be dangerous." "Your grandma is right, she's very smart." Richard admired the woman's prudence. "How about you just take me to the corner of your street?" Emily agreed, and the two walked through the streets near the park. Richard was shocked to realize he had worked in that area for years and never noticed the poor living conditions in some parts. The girl led him to a cluster of small, humble houses in a narrow alley he hadn't even known existed. "It's there, the little blue house," Emily pointed. "Thank you for playing with me, Daddy Richard." Before he could correct her about the daddy, the girl ran toward the house, waving cheerfully. Richard returned to the office completely unsettled. The meeting had been cancelled due to his lateness, but for the first time in his career it didn't bother him. His mind was entirely focused on Emily and her situation. That night, Richard barely slept. He kept thinking about the girl alone in the park, looking for someone to play with. He remembered the worn-out doll, the simple clothes, the way she had called him Daddy so naturally. The next day, Richard completely changed his routine. Instead of going straight to the office, he stopped by the park. There was Emily sitting on the same bench talking to her doll. "Daddy Richard," she shouted when she saw him, running to hug his legs. Richard felt overwhelming emotion. He had never experienced that feeling of being waited for, of being important to someone in such a pure and selfless way. "Good morning, Emily. How did you sleep?" "Good. I dreamed you came back to play with me. And you really did." Richard sat on the bench beside her, no longer caring about his suit. "Of course I came back. I promised, didn't I? Grandma says not everyone keeps promises, but I knew you would. Why were you so sure?" Emily looked at him with that seriousness children sometimes have. "Because you cried yesterday. People who cry have good hearts." Richard was moved by the girl's simple wisdom. She was right. He had cried because something deep inside him had been touched. "What should we play today?" "School. I'll be the teacher, and you'll be the student." Emily arranged small stones on the ground like desks. For the next hour, Richard became an obedient student, learning lessons about kindness, friendship, and simplicity that no business school had ever taught him. When he arrived at the office, his secretary, Melissa, was surprised by his changed demeanor. "Mr. Richard, you seem different today." "Different how?" "Lighter. Happier, maybe." Richard smiled. Melissa was right. He felt lighter than he had in years. Over the following days, Richard established a routine. He arrived at the park at 8 in the morning, played with Emily for an hour, and then went to work. The girl always waited for him in the same spot, with her doll Daisy and a radiant smile. It was during one of these playtimes that Emily revealed something that changed everything. "Daddy Richard, can I tell you a secret?" "Of course, Emily." "Grandma is very sick. She coughs a lot at night and sometimes can't get out of bed." Richard felt a chill in his stomach. "Does she see a doctor?" "She says doctors cost too much, but I hear her crying when she thinks I'm asleep." "Emily, do you think your grandmother would be mad if I wanted to meet her?" The girl thought for a moment. "I don't think so, if I tell her you're my friend. She always says true friends are rare." Richard felt the time had come to meet the woman who cared for this special child. "Then let's go. I'd like to meet Grandma Margaret." Emily beamed and led him through the side streets to the little blue house. She knocked eagerly. "Grandma, I brought my friend to meet you." The door opened slowly, revealing a woman around 65, thin and weary-looking but with sharp, cautious eyes. "Emily, you know you shouldn't bring strangers home," said Margaret, though her voice held no anger, only concern. "Sorry to bother you, Mrs. Margaret. My name is Richard Thompson. I've been meeting Emily in the park every day and wanted to introduce myself." Margaret studied Richard from head to toe, noting the expensive suit and designer watch. "Come in, Mr. Thompson, but forgive the humble home." "Please don't worry. May I?" Richard stepped into the small living room, which was spotless despite the worn, sparse furniture. He immediately noticed how everything was lovingly arranged, each item in its place. "Grandma, Daddy Richard is so nice. He plays house with me and does funny voices for Daisy," Emily chirped, bouncing on her toes. Margaret gave Richard an unreadable look. "Emily, sweetheart, go fetch some water for our guest." When the girl left, Margaret moved closer to Richard. "You seem like a good man, I can see that, but I need to know your intentions with my granddaughter." Richard took a deep breath. It was a fair and important question. "Mrs. Margaret, I don't have children. Never thought I wanted any. My life has always been just work. But Emily, she changed something in me. I have no intentions beyond being a friend, someone she can rely on. Do you have family?" "I've been married 15 years, but my wife and we've grown distant. She has her interests, I have my work." Margaret nodded slowly. "Emily lost her mother very young. She's always craved a father's affection. That's why she calls you Daddy. What happened to her mother? Childbirth complications. She was so young, only 18. Emily's father vanished when he heard about the pregnancy. Richard felt a deep anger toward the man who'd abandoned his responsibility. And you've raised Emily alone since then? Yes. I clean offices in a few buildings, but lately... Margaret broke into a harsh cough. Richard noticed how concerning it sounded. Mrs. Margaret, have you seen a doctor about that cough? Doctors are a luxury for people like me, Mr. Thompson. Please let me help. I can take you to a good doctor. I don't need charity, Margaret said, her dignity striking. It's not charity, it's a fair exchange. You gave me the chance to know Emily, who's brought joy to my life. Let me return the kindness. Emily returned with a glass of water, presenting it ceremoniously to Richard. Grandma, can Daddy Richard have lunch with us? Margaret hesitated, but something in Richard's earnest gaze convinced her. If he doesn't mind simple rice and beans... It'd be an honor, Richard replied sincerely. Lunch was one of the most touching experiences of Richard's life. Despite the meal's simplicity, love filled every gesture. Emily chattered excitedly, Margaret watched carefully, and Richard felt part of a family for the first time in years. Afterward, Richard brought up the doctor again. Mrs. Margaret, my wife has an excellent physician. Private, very discreet. Please let me schedule an appointment. Margaret looked at Emily, playing with her doll in the corner. All right. But only because I need to be strong to take care of Emily. Richard left the house with a heart both broken and full at the same time. Those two women, grandmother and granddaughter, had touched his soul in a way he never thought possible. That afternoon, Richard called Jennifer, his wife, telling her about Emily and Margaret. To his surprise, Jennifer showed interest in meeting them. Richard, in 15 years of marriage, I've never seen you so moved talking about someone. I want to meet this girl who's affected you so deeply. The next day, Richard took Jennifer to the park. Emily was initially shy, hiding behind Richard, but Jennifer's patience and sweetness soon won her over. You're very pretty, Aunt Jennifer, said Emily, gently touching the woman's blonde hair. Thank you, Emily, you're beautiful too. Can I meet your doll? Emily introduced Daisy with all seriousness, explaining the doll's story and personality. Jennifer listened with genuine attention, asking questions and showing real interest. Jennifer, Emily told me she loves books, said Richard. Maybe we could bring some for her. Actually, I have a better idea, Jennifer smiled. Emily, would you like to visit a big bookstore? You could pick out some books to take home. Emily's eyes widened. A real bookstore? With lots of books? Lots and lots of books, Jennifer confirmed. Richard was moved, seeing his wife connect with Emily. It had been years since he'd seen Jennifer so excited and engaged with something. The visit to the bookstore was magical. Emily ran between the shelves, touching the books with reverence, as if they were treasures. She carefully chose 5 books, always asking if she wasn't asking for too much. You can pick more, Emily, Jennifer encouraged. But Grandma always says not to ask for too much when someone is being kind. Richard and Jennifer exchanged emotional glances. The girls' manners and humility were remarkable. Back at Margaret's house, they introduced Jennifer. The grandmother welcomed her with the same cautious courtesy, but soon sensed her sincerity. Mrs. Margaret, I managed to schedule the doctor's appointment for tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon, Richard informed her. I don't know how to thank you. No need to thank us. We're the ones who should be grateful you came into our lives. Jennifer knelt down to Emily's level. Emily, can I ask you something? Of course, Aunt Jennifer. Would you like to spend a day at our house? We have a big garden and lots of games. Emily looked at Margaret, who nodded with a smile. Can I take Daisy? Of course. She'll love seeing our home. On the way back, Richard and Jennifer talked about their impressions. Richard, that girl is special, and Mrs. Margaret is an admirable woman, said Jennifer. I felt that from the first day. There's something about them. I can't explain. I felt the same. It's like they bring peace to my soul. Richard looked at his wife in surprise. It had been years since they'd spoken so deeply about their feelings. Jennifer, can I ask you something? Of course. How do you feel about us never having children? Jennifer was silent for a long moment. It always hurt Richard, but I got used to the idea. Why do you ask? Because ever since I met Emily, I've been thinking a lot about it. About what we missed, about what we could still have. What do you mean? I don't know yet. I just know that girl has awakened something in me I didn't know existed. Jennifer took Richard's hand. In me too, Richard. In me too. Margaret's medical appointment revealed chronic bronchitis that needed immediate treatment. The doctor prescribed expensive medication and recommended some tests. Doctor, how much will all this cost? Margaret asked, worried. Don't worry about that now, Mrs. Margaret, Richard intervened. The important thing is for you to get better, Ma'am. Mr. Richard, I can't accept. Please, think of Emily. She needs you healthy. Margaret reluctantly agreed, knowing Richard was right. As Margaret underwent treatment, Richard and Jennifer took turns caring for Emily during the day. The little girl quickly adapted to the couple's home, filling the rooms with her laughter and energy. Aunt Jennifer, your house is so big, Emily remarked as she explored. Why don't you have kids? The innocent question hit Jennifer hard. Richard stepped closer, ready to intervene. Sometimes things don't happen when we want them to, Emily, Jennifer explained gently. But you're both so nice. I'm sure you'd be amazing parents. Richard and Jennifer exchanged glances, both moved by the simplicity of Emily's words. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. During the days Emily spent with them, Richard discovered aspects of himself he hadn't known. He had endless patience for her questions, creativity to invent games, and a newfound ability to find joy in the simplest things. Jennifer, in turn, blossomed in Emily's company. She cooked special meals, helped with homework, and told bedtime stories. It was as if she'd found her true calling. Daddy Richard, can I ask you something? Emily said one afternoon as they played in the garden. Of course, Emily. Why are you and Aunt Jennifer so kind to me? Richard stopped pushing the swing and knelt in front of her. Because you're very special, Emily. You've brought light into our lives. But I'm not special, I'm just a normal girl. You have the purest heart I've ever known. That's very special. Emily hugged Richard tightly. I wish you were my real parents. Richard felt tears welling in his eyes. In that moment, he wanted nothing more in the world. Margaret recovered well from her treatment and was soon able to care for Emily again. But when Richard and Jennifer took the girl back, they all felt a deep sadness. Grandma, can I visit Daddy Richard and Aunt Jennifer anytime? Emily asked. Of course, sweetheart, if they're happy to have you. You'll always be welcome in our home, Jennifer said, her voice thick with emotion. In the days that followed, Richard continued meeting Emily in the park. But something had changed. He now saw the girl's difficult situation with new eyes and felt an urgency to do more for her. It was on one of those afternoons that Emily made a revelation that would change everything. Daddy Richard, Grandma's worried about something. What is it, Emily? She said when she gets too old, she won't be able to take care of me anymore. And I don't have anyone else. Richard's heart raced. How do you feel about that? I'm scared. I don't want to go to an orphanage. I want to stay with people who love me. Emily, you know Aunt Jennifer and I love you very much, right? I know. You're the best people in the world. I wish I could be your daughter. Richard hugged Emily tightly, sensing the moment had come to make a decision he'd been weighing for weeks. That night, Richard spoke at length with Jennifer. Jennifer, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about adopting Emily. Jennifer didn't seem surprised. I've been thinking the same thing, Richard, but it's a very serious decision. I know. It would change our lives completely. For the better, Jennifer said firmly. Richard, ever since Emily came into our lives, I've felt complete, like this was always meant to be. So you agree? More than agree. I want this as much as you do. Richard felt an immense wave of relief. I knew making this decision alone would be impossible. But first we need to talk to Mrs. Margaret. Of course, she's Emily's grandmother. She has every right to be part of this decision. The next day, Richard and Jennifer visited Margaret. They sat in the small living room and Richard gathered the courage to speak. Mrs. Margaret, we'd like to talk about Emily's future. Margaret tensed up immediately. What do you mean? We'd like to adopt Emily. Officially, legally, Jennifer said gently. Margaret fell silent for a long moment, taking in the news. Are you sure about this? Adopting a child is forever. We're absolutely sure, Richard replied. Emily is already our daughter in our hearts. And what about me? Margaret asked, her voice breaking. You'll always be Emily's grandmother. We want you to remain part of her life, Jennifer explained. In fact, we'd like you to live with us. Our house is big, and Emily needs you. Margaret began to cry, covering her face with her hands. I'm sorry, it's just, I've always been afraid of the day I wouldn't be able to take proper care of her anymore. You'll never stop taking care of her. We'll just do it together now, Richard said, taking her hand. Does Emily know about this? We haven't talked to her yet. We wanted your approval first. Margaret looked at them both, wiping her tears. You've brought my granddaughter joy in ways I never could. I see the love in your eyes when you look at her. How could I deny Emily the chance to have a complete family? So you agree? I do, but on one condition. What is it? I want to be there for every important moment in Emily's life. Graduations, birthdays, her wedding. Mrs. Margaret, you'll be part of all those moments, Jennifer promised. When Emily came home from school that day, she found the three most important adults in her life sitting together in the living room. What's going on? She asked, with a child's intuition. Richard knelt to her level. Emily, you've asked us many times if Aunt Jennifer and I could be your real parents. Uh-huh. How would you feel if I told you we want that too? Emily's eyes widened. Really, really? Really, really? Jennifer confirmed, kneeling beside him. Emily looked at Margaret, worried. What about Grandma? Grandma is going to live with you, sweetheart. We'll be one big, happy family, Margaret explained. Emily was silent for a moment, processing the news. Then her face lit up with the biggest smile Richard had ever seen. Can I call you Dad and Mum? Yes, Richard and Jennifer said in unison, hugging the girl. And Daisy gets a big family now too. Everyone laughed through tears of joy. The legal adoption process began immediately. Richard hired the best lawyers to ensure everything was done correctly and as quickly as possible. During that time, Emily started spending more days at Richard and Jennifer's house, gradually adjusting to her new life. Margaret visited often too, helping with the transition. One day, while Richard was helping Emily with homework, she asked a question that caught him off guard. Dad, Richard, why did it take you so long to find me? What do you mean, Emily? I always knew you existed. I just didn't know where you were. Richard was moved by the girl's wisdom. Maybe I wasn't ready before. I needed to learn some things first. Like what? How to be a father. How to love someone more than myself. Emily nodded as if she understood perfectly. And now you know? Now I know. You taught me. The official move happened on a sunny Saturday. Richard and Jennifer rented a truck to bring Margaret and Emily's belongings. It wasn't much, but every item held sentimental value. Grandma, look how big my room is, exclaimed Emily, running through the rooms. And there's a window that looks out to the garden, Margaret observed, moved. Do you like your room, Mrs. Margaret? Jennifer asked eagerly. It's the most beautiful room I've ever had in my life, Margaret replied honestly. On that first night, as an official family, Richard Thompson would have trouble sleeping, not from worry, but from pure joy. His house, once silent and cold, was now full of life. In the morning, he was awakened by light footsteps in the hallway. Emily appeared at the bedroom door, still in her pajamas. Daddy, can I come in? Of course, Emily. She jumped onto the bed and snuggled between Richard and Jennifer. I slept really well. I dreamed we were a happy family forever. It wasn't a dream, sweetheart, Jennifer said, stroking the girl's hair. It's real. The first few months of living together were full of adjustments. Richard had to learn to balance work and family, something entirely new for him. Jennifer discovered the joy of caring for a child, planning activities and keeping up with Emily's school progress. Margaret adapted well to the new home, helping with Emily's care and bringing her life wisdom to the family. It was during one of those early weeks that something unexpected happened. Richard was working from home when he heard an argument in the garden. You can't play here. This isn't your real home, a child shouted. Richard approached the window and saw Emily talking to a boy from the neighborhood. "Yes, it is my home. Daddy Richard and Mommy Jennifer adopted me," Emily replied calmly. "They adopted you because no one wanted you. Your real parents abandoned you?" Richard saw Emily lower her head, clearly hurt. He immediately stepped outside to intervene. "Emily, is everything okay?" "Daddy, Jake said you're not my real dad." Richard knelt to the girl's height and looked firmly at the neighbor boy. "Jake, isn't it? I want you to listen to something very important. Emily is my real daughter. In my heart, which is what matters most. And if I hear you or anyone else hurting her again, I'll have a talk with your parents, understood?" The boy nodded, intimidated, and ran off. "Emily, look at me," Richard said softly. "Was he right, Daddy? Am I not your real daughter? Emily, you're the most real daughter I could ever have. I chose you, I wanted you, I loved you before I even knew you existed. Doesn't that make you more special than anything?" Emily nodded, but Richard could see the boy's words still stung. "You know what? Let's make a new birth certificate where it says I'm your father and Jennifer is your mother. Then no one can ever say we're not a real family." Emily's face lit up. "Really? Will it have my name as Emily Thompson?" "Emily Thompson? What a beautiful name, don't you think?" That night at dinner, Richard told Jennifer and Margaret what had happened. "Sadly, Emily will face comments like that again in her life," Margaret said. "Then we'll prepare her for it," Jennifer decided. "We'll teach her that families are made in many different ways, but love is always the same." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Richard agreed. His daughter needed to grow up confident in her place in the family, no matter what others said. The months passed and Emily settled completely into her new life. Her cheerful, spontaneous personality brought profound changes to everyone around her. Richard, who used to work late every day, now made sure to come home for dinner. He discovered that listening to Emily talk about her day was more interesting than any business meeting. Jennifer found in motherhood a fulfillment she didn't know she was searching for. She threw herself completely into Emily's school life, attending meetings, presentations, and activities. Margaret, despite her age, felt rejuvenated by the new routine. Caring for Emily in a safe and loving environment filled her with renewed energy. It was on one of these happy, ordinary days that Richard received a call that would change everything again. "Mr. Richard Thompson?" said an unfamiliar woman's voice. "Yes, speaking." "My name is Jessica Wilson. I'm Emily's birth mother." Richard felt the world stop around him. "What did you say?" "I know this must be a shock, but I need to talk to you. It's about Emily." Richard asked the woman to hold on and stepped out of his office for privacy. "Where are you? How did you get my number?" "I'm in Portland. I hired a detective to find Emily. I found out she's living with you." "Ms. Wilson, I need to understand something. Emily told us her mother died in childbirth." "I know. That's what Margaret told her to protect her. But I'm alive, Mr. Thompson, and I want my daughter back." Richard felt as if the ground had vanished beneath his feet. "I need to talk to my wife. Can we meet tomorrow?" "Of course. But Mr. Thompson, I know you've taken good care of Emily. I don't want to fight. I just want to explain my situation." After arranging the meeting, Richard hung up, completely shaken. How would he tell Jennifer? And more importantly, how would they explain to Emily that her birth mother was alive? That night, after Emily went to sleep, Richard told Jennifer and Margaret everything. "I knew this day would come," Margaret said sadly. "I always feared Jessica would return." "Why did you tell Emily she had died?" and Jennifer asked. "Jessica was very young when Emily was born. She had drug problems, got involved with dangerous people. She left Emily with me and disappeared. I thought it was better to say she had died to spare the girl the pain of rejection." "And now?" Richard asked desperately. "Now we'll meet this woman and see what she really wants," Jennifer said firmly. The meeting was set for the next day at a quiet cafe. Richard and Jennifer arrived first, anxious and nervous. When Jessica appeared, Richard was struck by her resemblance to Emily. She was a woman in her early 30s, thin, dressed simply but neatly, with eyes that showed years of hardship. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me," Jessica said, sitting down timidly. "We want to understand your situation," Richard said directly. Jessica took a deep breath before speaking. "When Emily was born, I was only 18. Her father left me when he found out I was pregnant. I had no stability, no money, no support except from Margaret. Then why did you leave?" Jennifer asked. "I got involved with the wrong crowd, started using drugs to escape the depression. Margaret gave me an ultimatum. Either quit the drugs, or she would take Emily. I chose the drugs." Richard and Jennifer exchanged tense glances. "Where have you been all these years?" "Going through treatments. I fell very low, Mr. Thompson. I was hospitalized 3 times, lost jobs, lived on the streets. But 2 years ago, I finally got clean for good." "Why did you decide to look for Emily now?" "Because I'm finally stable. I have a steady job, a small but decent apartment, and most importantly, I've been sober for 2 years. Jessica showed them some documents, proof of employment, medical records, proof of residence. "I know you love Emily. Anyone can see that. I don't want to tear her away from you in a traumatic way." "So, what exactly do you want?" asked Richard. "I want her to know I exist, that I love her, that my leaving wasn't because she wasn't good enough, but because I wasn't." Jennifer was moved by the woman's sincere words. "Emily is doing very well with us," she said. "She has a routine, a school, friends. She's happy." "I know, and I don't want to ruin that. But she has the right to know her real story." Richard took a deep breath. "How do you imagine this would work?" "I don't know. Maybe gradual meetings. Let her get to know me slowly with no pressure." "And what if Emily decides she wants to stay with us? Then I'll respect that. I just want the chance to show I've changed, that I've become the mother she deserved from the start." Richard and Jennifer asked for time to think. They returned home completely unsettled by the situation. "What are we going to do, Richard?" asked Jennifer. "I don't know. Part of me wants to protect Emily from this mess, but another part knows she has the right to meet her birth mother. What if Jessica tries to take her away? We can't legally stop that. The adoption hasn't been finalized yet." That night, Richard and Jennifer barely slept. In the morning, they decided to talk to Margaret first. "Margaret, we need your help deciding what's best for Emily." "Has Jessica really changed?" asked the grandmother. "It seems so, but you know her better than we do." Margaret was thoughtful for a long moment. "Jessica was always a good girl at heart. The drugs turned her into someone else. If she's really been clean for 2 years, do you think we should let Emily meet her?" "I think Emily has the right to know the truth, but you should be there to protect her." With heavy hearts, Richard and Jennifer decided to tell Emily the truth. "Emily, you need to sit down. We have something important to talk about," said Richard seriously. Emily immediately grew worried. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart. You never do anything wrong," reassured Jennifer. "It's about your story, my story." Richard looked at Jennifer, drawing strength. "Emily, remember how you always thought your mother died when you were born?" "Uh-huh." "Well, she didn't die. She was sick and couldn't take care of you." Emily processed the information slowly. "She's alive?" "She is. And now she's better. She'd like to meet you." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "She didn't want to meet me before." "She did, Emily, but she was too sick to be a good mom. Now she's better and really wants to see you." "Where was she?" Richard explained Jessica's struggles simply, avoiding details about drugs. "Did she leave because she didn't like me?" "No, Emily," said Jennifer firmly. "She left because she was sick and knew you deserved better. It was an act of love, not rejection." Emily was silent for several minutes. "I want to meet her," she finally said. "Are you sure?" "Yes, but I don't want to stop being your daughter." Richard hugged Emily tightly. "You'll always be our daughter no matter what." The first meeting between Emily and Jessica was set for the following weekend at a public park, with Richard and Jennifer present. Emily was visibly nervous, clutching her doll Daisy as she always did when anxious. "That's her," said Richard when Jessica approached. Emily froze at the sight of the woman who was clearly her birth mother. The resemblance was striking. Jessica walked up slowly, equally nervous. "Hi, Emily," she said, her voice trembling. "Hi," Emily replied shyly. "You're so beautiful, and so big." "You look like me," Emily observed. "I do. You have my eyes and your grandfather's nose." Jessica knelt down to Emily's level. "Emily, I know you must have many questions, and I want to answer them all honestly. Why did you leave?" "Because I was sick, Emily. Very sick. And sick people sometimes do wrong things, even when they don't mean to." "Didn't you love me?" Jessica began to cry. "I loved you more than anything in the world. That's exactly why I left. You deserved a better life than I could give you back then." Emily looked at Richard and Jennifer as if seeking confirmation. "It's true, Emily," Richard said. "Sometimes people do hard things out of love." "Are you better now?" "I am. It took a long time, but I'm well now. And I dream every day of getting to know the wonderful young woman you've become." Emily took a step closer to Jessica. "Can I ask you something? As much as you want. Do you want to take me away from Dad Richard and Mom Jennifer?" Jessica looked straight into her daughter's eyes. "No, Emily. They love you and take care of you better than I ever could. I just want to be part of your life, if you'll let me." "How?" "As a friend. A heart mother too, just like you have a heart father." Emily thought for a moment. "Can I call you Mom Jessica?" "You can," Jessica answered, moved. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Emily gradually opened up, asking questions and even laughing at some stories Jessica told about her own childhood. When they said goodbye, Emily gave Jessica a quick hug. "Can I see you again?" "Whenever you want." On the way home, Emily was thoughtful. "Dad Richard, is it possible to have 2 moms?" "Of course it is. Just like you have 2 grandparents, you can have 2 moms too." "And that's not weird?" "It's different," Jennifer said. "But different isn't bad. It means you have even more people who love you." Over the following weeks, the meetings with Jessica became regular, always supervised by Richard and Jennifer, but gradually more relaxed. Jessica respected the boundaries, never trying to interfere with the family's routine or decisions. She was a gentle, caring presence in Emily's life. Margaret, initially wary, slowly accepted Jessica's presence. In an emotional meeting, mother and daughter talked at length about the past and the future. "Thank you for taking care of Emily when I couldn't," Jessica said. "You're my daughter too, Jessica. Always have been." Richard watched everything with admiration. This unconventional family was working in a way he'd never imagined possible. It was during one of these meetings that something unexpected happened. Emily was playing in the park when an older boy tried to take her doll, Daisy. "That doll is old and ugly," the boy taunted. "Don't touch Daisy," Emily shouted, trying to get her doll back. Richard stood to intervene, but Jessica was faster. "Hey kid," she said firmly, "give that doll back to my daughter, now." The boy, intimidated by Jessica's authority, handed Daisy back and ran off. Emily hugged Daisy and then ran to Jessica. "Thank you for defending Daisy, Mom Jessica." Richard was moved, seeing Jessica's instinctive protectiveness. At that moment, he knew she had truly changed. Months passed, and the family dynamic settled. Emily split her time between Richard and Jennifer's home, where she lived, and outings with Jessica. Richard finally completed the adoption process, securing legal stability for Emily. Jessica fully supported the decision. "She needs stability," Jessica said. "You can give that to her better than I can." It was during the celebration of the finalized adoption that Emily made a special request. "Can I call everyone family, even if it's different?" "Of course you can," Richard answered. "Families come in all shapes." That evening during dinner, Emily raised her glass of juice. "I want to make a toast." Everyone laughed at the girl's seriousness. "To my big family, Daddy Richard, Mommy Jennifer, Grandma Margaret, Mommy Jessica, and of course Daisy. To family," they all replied in unison. Richard looked around the table at the people who had become his family in such an unexpected way. Margaret, with her wisdom and dignity. Jennifer, who had blossomed in motherhood. Jessica, who had fought to recover and find her place. And Emily, the center of it all, who had taught everyone about unconditional love. A few months later, Richard had an idea that would change their lives even more. "Jessica, can I make you an offer?" "Of course, Richard. My company is expanding the human resources department. I need someone with experience in personal resilience to work with employees in difficult situations. Would you be interested?" Jessica was surprised. "You're offering me a job?" "I'm offering an opportunity. You have life experience that money can't buy. You could help a lot of people." "But what if someone finds out about my past?" "Your past is part of your qualifications. It shows you know how to climb out of the lowest pit." Jessica accepted the offer and proved exceptional at the job. Her empathy and understanding helped many employees going through hardships. Emily was proud when she learned that her mommy Jessica worked at Daddy Richard's company. "Now we're a family that works together too," she cheered. Life settled into a happy, stable routine. Emily grew up surrounded by love, understanding that she had a unique story, one that made her special, not different. Richard was no longer the cold businessman he'd once been. He transformed his company into an organization that genuinely cared for its employees' well-being. Jennifer found her true calling in motherhood and even got involved in volunteer work with underprivileged children. Margaret became the most loving and present grandmother any child could wish for, filling Emily's life with stories and wisdom. Jessica built a solid new life, proving that second chances truly exist when there's determination and support. One day when Emily was 10, she asked Richard, "Daddy, do you regret stopping in the park that day?" Richard looked at his daughter, beautiful, smart, surrounded by books and toys in their home full of love. "Emily, that was the best day of my life. It was the day I found my real wealth." "What wealth?" "You, my family, love. I realized being a father is so much better than being a businessman." Emily smiled and hugged Richard. "I'm glad you stopped too. So is Daisy." Richard laughed, looking at the rag doll that remained Emily's inseparable companion. "Then I should thank Daisy too." That night, Richard reflected on how a simple question from a little girl had completely transformed his life. "I don't have a daddy, will you play with me?" had been the start of a journey that taught him about love, family, and the true meaning of wealth. He glanced out the bedroom window and saw Emily in the garden, playing with Margaret, while Jennifer and Jessica chatted on the porch. His unconventional yet perfect family. Richard smiled, knowing he'd made the best decision of his life that afternoon in the park. Sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as simple requests from children who just want love and attention. Emily grew up knowing she had been chosen by love, not by chance, and Richard learned that being a father wasn't about biology. It was about dedication, patience, and unconditional love. The doll Daisy, a silent witness to all this transformation, continued to be cherished, reminding everyone of where it all began, with a brave little girl who wasn't afraid to ask a stranger to play with her. And so, a family was born not of blood, but of the heart, proving that love builds bonds stronger than anything else in the world. The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story. Do you believe Richard made the right decision by stopping to play with Emily? Which moment moved you the most? Share your honest thoughts in the comments. We love hearing what our listeners think. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other heartwarming stories.